Another Army general has retired, reportedly in protest over conflicts with the administration. Just why is the U.S. seeming to, well, drive out anyone with any real qualifications? But don't worry, a Fox News host is on the case. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Hit subscribe, and by the way, last day, Strike Gum's 2-for-1 sale is on. So if you haven't picked up your Strike Gum, the energy drink alternative, don't miss out. It's literally ending November 1st. Just add 3 of the same items to your cart. You'll see the discount automatically apply. And in no time, you will be getting the equivalent of an energy drink's worth of caffeine in every piece with 0 sugar. So, I want to talk about this guy, Lieutenant General Joseph McGee. I swear that's his real name. He is a very senior Pentagon planner, a 3-star, right? So the Pentagon planner, in fact, and has retiring amid reported clashes he's had with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth over Ukraine and strikes in the Caribbean. And the funny thing is, we can almost pinpoint the exact moment that, the exact decision, rather, that drove General McGee from the service. This is actually kind of insane, right? Because you have to understand, if you're a general, you spend a lot of your career like taking it from higher command, telling you what you can and can't do, telling you what the plans and visions are. And to make it to the 3-star level, to truly be able to write policies and implement ideas about how the U.S. military should fight its wars and deploy and structure itself around the globe is a prestige, final terminal office. These guys enter this job and are like, finally, I can be the guy making the difference. I can be the person that I've been underneath, right? And we can, move the U.S. military to places and in ways that will preserve its strength, right? And deter our enemies. And these guys are people with 30, 40 plus years in charge and in uniform. And so for them to retire after just a few months on the job is a huge sign. And it takes a lot to do it. Like, truly, if you want to be a 3-star general, you have to be able to really kiss some ass, change the political winds. Like, that's just how these things go. So for this guy to retire after just less than 18 months on the job is pretty crazy, right? The latest senior officer to leave a high-ranking Pentagon position early. It's also just bad for the U.S. when a long-term planner leaves after just a couple of months. Now, this was by CNN. This is guy for strategy, plans, and policy on the Joint Staff, right? And reportedly leaving over tensions with Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, who, by the way, worth noting, Dan Kane was like a 1-star when he was brought back to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs. So jumping 3 stars ahead, and probably around, 5, maybe a decade of experience, jumping the ship, so to speak. So this is not somebody with the seasoning, so to speak, to really be in charge. And I'll be the first to tell you, like, being a career general doesn't intrinsically qualify you. But it's kind of weird that if the person who loves you the most is a Fox News host who, again, seems to be making more and more unhinged decisions. According to reports, McGee pushed back against Hegseth and Kane on several issues, including Russia, Ukraine, and military strikes in the Caribbean, right? Now, of course, they decided that by offering, for example, again, sound advice, that made it clear to Hegseth that he was actually a secret agent on behalf of Lloyd Austin and Mark Milley. Hegseth and President Trump both made no secret of their personal animosity for Milley and Austin. By the way, Mark Milley, appointed chairman of the Joint Chiefs by Trump. Lloyd Austin, of course, Biden's Secretary of Defense, going so far as to have Milley's official portrait removed from the Pentagon, which is insane and petty, right? Then Sean Parnell, official spokesman, just said General McGee is retiring and the War Department is grateful for his service. Not the name of the Department of Defense. It's a secondary title for the defense, that the Department of Defense that they just made up. Now, what I want to point out is that I think this is probably what sealed the deal. Is this the U.S. pulling a brigade from Romania, according to sources in the Kiev Post, or telling the Kiev Post. According to U.S. and European officials briefed on the matter, the administration notified Western allies earlier this week of its decision to remove troops, with a formal announcement expected in the coming days. The troop reduction is not expected to exceed more than a battalion, but that's unlikely. And they said it's not going to impact operations in the region, but that's not just the case. It says it's a brigade, and they may be describing it as 700 troops as a Ukrainian brigade. But the strange part is that, again, this is done at a time where Russia is staging more and more incursions into NATO airspace, including Romanian airspace, and as the U.S. president is trying to persuade Vladimir Putin to accept a ceasefire in Ukraine. Now, the final decision, initially, the drawdown was supposed to target both Romania and Poland, but it settled on just Romania, primarily because Trump appeared to have promised the Polish president that he was not going to withdraw any troops from Poland. Now, there is, as pointed out, U.S. Army Colonel Richard Williams, Deputy Director of NATO's Defense Investment Division, told the Kiev Post, quote, "There's no obvious or tactical reasoning for the withdrawal of the NATO brigade from Romania." And this is sort of true because, look, according to one analyst at a Polish think tank, she said, quote, "Any reductions in our region will be perceived by Russia as inviting further aggression. That the deterrence value of the U.S. military is a symbol of the U.S. military's investment in every inch of NATO territory." She told the Kiev Post that rotational units like those in Romania are easy to withdraw because there's already a plan to rotate them out. You just don't backfill them. Now, this is troubling because, well, the deterring Vladimir Putin is clearly Vladimir Putin is ramping up his aggression. And if your goal, as we've pointed out in the Trump administration, is to deter Vladimir Putin, appearing weaker in the face of continued aggression isn't doing that. It's like, imagine if you're getting mugged and the mugger has a gun and your response, you're like, the best way to stop this mugging is not just to give the mugger your wallet, but then you say, hey, why don't I actually have a Rolex in my pocket. I'll give you the Rolex, to appear weaker and more afraid. I'll call my wife. Don't shoot me. I'll call my wife and she'll give you even more money. Like, that's going to encourage the mugger to continue his attack. If you wanted to deter a mugger, you would have a gun of your own. You would have a larger gun. You would have friends with guns, right? That is, the international community is not subject to the rule of law or niceties or negotiations or feel-good stuff. You win. People are rational actors. Vladimir Putin will not continue this war if he believes the war is going to degrade the international position of himself personally and the Russian state. So, withdrawing, right, the NATO showing weakness in the face of escalating Russian aggression is inviting further Russian aggression. And it's obvious. This is not like advanced international studies, okay? I happen to have actually gone to the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. And they said the same thing. In Advanced International Studies, they say the same thing they say in undergrad international studies, which is, if you have big gun, you make rules. And so the U.S. being like, whoa, we can't have him see too much big gun. Well, then you must want Vladimir Putin to make the rules. So, again, part of this is almost certainly the Trump administration's bizarre fixation on Venezuela and the Caribbean. And we've talked about the fact that the Trump administration has made no meaningful case that the Venezuelan government poses any kind of real fundamental threat to the U.S. Blowing up random fishing boats and claiming that they were drug boats in units of 1 and 2 does not warrant a carrier strike group, and it certainly doesn't warrant redeployment of brigade-sized elements of the U.S. military. Again, and I want to be clear, if you were to, when looking at the 2024 DEA report of the largest drug trafficking organizations moving drugs into the United States, Venezuela doesn't even make the list. Mexico, right? Mexico. You also have countries like China producing fentanyl precursors. But essentially, the Mexican cartels have pretty thorough vertical integration. And the fact that the U.S. military is instead fixated on Venezuela is both bizarre, but also simply, again, you see, it involves trade-offs. If you want to take out a minor regional threat who poses, by the way, no military threat at all, it means that you have to yield to Vladimir Putin and you have to yield to Xi Jinping's China. So China and Putin are almost certainly cheering as the U.S. military does these sort of things. And again, the fact that experienced generals, people with decades and decades in service, are resigning in protest, in all likelihood is a sign that the decision-making is absolutely becoming totally unhinged. Anyway, that's all I had. Alfred Chesky, Alan Knutson, Christine Schumann, Dan M., Deborah Oppenheimer, all of our Lieutenant Tier members. We couldn't do it without you. I appreciate you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.